Welcome, fellow history enthusiasts. Tonight, we delve into the harsh reality of a craftsman who literally shaped the medieval world, the blacksmith. While modern media portrays them romantically hammering glowing metal amid majestic showers of sparks, the historical truth was far more brutal. The life of a medieval blacksmith was characterized by relentless labor, physical suffering, and a constant battle against heat and exhaustion that few modern people could comprehend. Before we continue, if you enjoy this historical journey, please consider liking and subscribing. I'm curious where you're tuning in from tonight. Drop your location and local time in the comments below. Now, dim your lights. Perhaps turn on a gentle fan for background ambience, and let's immerse ourselves in medieval craftsmanship. Imagine being born into a blacksmith's lineage, no grand inheritance, no titles or land, merely a family forge, perpetual blisters, and the distinctive scent of heated iron that permeates even your swaddling clothes. From your earliest steps, avoiding the fire pit becomes your first survival skill. By age 6, you're formally apprenticed to your father, medieval terminology for unpaid child laborer, with perpetually soot-marked features, your childhood playthings, industrial tools, your playground, the dirt floor beside a furnace capable of searing flesh in seconds. While other village children enjoy simple games, you're mastering the art of survival around molten metal. Your daily activities include testing heat with unprotected hands, enduring arm-numbing hammer work, and suppressing tears when you fail to craft even simple items correctly. Your father, the master blacksmith, is typically an intimidating figure of few words beyond sighs, grunts, and the perpetual command to strike harder. His calloused hands resemble oak bark, his expression permanently hardened by decades of smoke inhalation and tax collection confrontations. His teaching method is demonstration without explanation. Questioning his techniques might result in flying tools and days of silence. The concept of holidays remains theoretical. The forge operates continuously, and so must you. Someone invariably needs repairs, sharpening, or crafting. You quickly learn that leisure exists only in the brief intervals between tasks. While ostensibly learning a trade, your true education encompasses pain, endurance, heat tolerance, and the ability to remain semi-conscious while standing. By your 10th year, your scent is perpetually metallic. Your vocabulary rivals that of miners, and your arms possess strength disproportionate to your age, capable of carrying water vessels heavier than the family dog, assuming it hasn't fled from the constant hammering. This existence becomes your identity. Welcome to your hereditary occupation, lifetime promise of perspiration, smoke inhalation, and degenerative physical ailments. If you harbored illusions of childhood play before serious work began, reality quickly dispels such notions. In a blacksmith's household, childhood exists merely as concept. Once capable of lifting a water bucket without collapsing, you're immediately conscripted. Conventional toys and recreation become distant memories. Your playroom, a smoke-blackened workshop filled with dangerous implements and open flames. Your recreational equipment, metal-gripping tools beside molten coal. One misstep means an impromptu lesson in human flesh combustion rates before your father intervenes. Your official designation may be apprentice, but the practical translation is performer of all undesirable tasks while enduring criticism. Your responsibilities include maintaining fire, operating bellows, cleaning workspaces, organizing tools, restacking fuel, and avoiding impalement by falling metalwork. before the morning meal. Compensation arrives as basic sustenance, silent acknowledgments, and occasional grunts signifying minimally acceptable performance. Meanwhile, your former playmates work in fields, engaging in simple games or learning agricultural skills. You envy them despite their agricultural odors, their future occupations farming or shepherding, while humble, involve significantly fewer molten materials and unexpected burns. Your education focuses on handcrafting, nails, thousands upon thousands, bent, misshapen, repeatedly heated, until they're straight enough for basic construction. If fortune favors you, your father eventually permits independent hammer use, immediately followed by exhaustive criticism of your technique. Never express fatigue. Such acknowledgement doesn't exist within the forge. Exhaustion represents weakness. Burnout remains exclusive to illumination. You continue striking, sweating, maintaining composure or at minimum, concealing tears because, in your master's perception, you've transcended childhood. You're a blacksmith in training, and training never concludes. The forge transcends workplace status. It becomes your entire existence. It dominates every sense, reshapes your musculature, and reconfigures your cognition. By adolescence, it ceases to be merely location. It transforms into a living entity, hot, smoke-filled, temperamental, requiring constant feeding, control, and respectful fear. The auditory landscape becomes internalized, bellows exhaling, metal hissing in quenching water, hammer striking metal with war drum resonance. A brutal medieval symphony emerges with its own rhythm, synchronizing with your movements, whether fully conscious or semi-awake. Eventually, you stop registering extreme heat, not from adaptation, but resignation, like accepting taxation or gravity. You instinctively identify which stones retain excessive heat, which coals burn most efficiently, and which floor sections threaten injury. Your skin darkens from smoke rather than sunlight. Your clothing, perpetually soot-impregnated tunic and leather apron, emanates an aroma combining scorched wool, grease, and resignation. Material possessions remain minimal, but the forge belongs to you, not legally, as your father maintains ownership, but practically it possesses you. Silence becomes unrecognizable. The continuous hissing, clanging, crackling becomes your normal environment. Rare moments of quiet create discomfort, triggering reflexive movements like missing beats in an involuntarily memorized composition. Social connections dwindle. Likely at the forge becomes your perpetual status. You don't merely operate as blacksmith. You embody the forja, bipedal extension of fire and metal. Curiously, affection develops not for injuries or blisters, but for moments of creation. When shapes emerge correctly, horseshoes fit perfectly, blades gleam properly, when metal submits to your intention. Momentarily, you transcend being a soot-covered youth, becoming creator, craftsman, essential component in medieval mechanics. Then the moment passes, new orders arrive, and work resumes. While your contemporaries develop naturally into adolescence, your physique already exhibits signs of excessive labor. As they grow taller and stronger, you become increasingly hunched, scarred, and rigid. Your arms develop thickness not from athletic prowess, but from repetitive metal manipulation. Your spine curves prematurely from hours of material transportation and forge leaning. Your joints protest during movement. Shoulders emit audible sounds with each hammer lift occurring every few seconds, becoming part of your personal soundscape. Your hands transform dramatically. Once normal digits, they become iron-stained, claws blistered, cracked, permanently marked with embedded soot, defying even thorough cleansing. Cuts become routine, burns daily occurrences, and approximately half your fingernails remain permanently blackened or absent. Accepting food requires delicate handling, as if manipulating fragile, prickly objects, because every knuckle experiences constant pain. Recovery periods don't exist. Muscle strain. Continue working. Wrist injury. Use the opposite hand. The forge remains indifferent to physical suffering. Metal doesn't accommodate human limitations. Sleep quality deteriorates despite physical exhaustion. Muscle pain prevents comfortable positioning. Your hearing continues, processing hours of metallic impacts, and your arms involuntarily mimic hammering motions, like battling invisible opponents during dreams. Pain manifests in previously unknown anatomical locations. Even your discomfort seems to generate secondary discomfort. Your father's response to your suffering, appropriate. Your learning, paradoxically, he's correct. Your development occurs not despite suffering, but through it. Like your forged materials, you're being tempered through heat, pressure, and repetition. However, upon reaching adulthood, your physical condition suggests multiple lifetimes of accumulated damage. Your career has barely commenced. In conventional occupations, smoke represents a problem. In blacksmithing, it functions as an unpleasant colleague. The forge isn't merely hot. It's an asphyxiation chamber where every inhalation delivers coal dust, scorched metal particles, ash, and regret. Clear visibility beyond 6 feet indicates someone's neglected the fire. Proper ventilation doesn't exist, merely a ceiling aperture that admits more smoke than it expels. Windows, non-existent. Only soot-blackened walls. Your father's chronic coughing and occasional wind gusts that direct debris into your eyes. Your respiratory system develops a toxic relationship with smoke. Initial burning sensations progress to irritation, eventually becoming normalized. Coughing fits integrate into your workflow. Black mucus, while concerning, becomes expected. Eventually, clean air feels unnatural. Your vocal characteristics alter. Your speech resembles that of elderly agricultural workers who consume caustic substances. Words become raspier, breaths shallower, throat perpetually irritated. Yet work continues from necessity. The atmospheric contamination extends beyond fire-generated smoke. Metal grinding produces dust. Quenching creates oil vapors, and occasionally burnt leather, charred wood, or unidentified materials fall into coals. By midday, you've likely inhaled multiple toxins. Protective equipment remains primitive, perhaps a facial cloth that quickly becomes sweat-soaked, malodorous, and potentially worse than the smoke itself. Removing it immediately affects breathing, but eliminates the sensation of suffocating in your own perspiration. Long-term health consequences are inevitable respiratory conditions. Lung disease, reduced lifespan, occupational hazards. However, immediate concerns predominate completing current projects before your father notices imperfections. For medieval blacksmiths, breathing isn't about survival, but sustaining productivity. Over time, you develop complex relationships with your tools based on necessity, pain, and mutual antagonism. Your hammer becomes essentially appendage-like. You name it, curse it, and swing it so frequently your shoulder develops clicking sounds resembling percussion instruments. Without it, you're merely perspiring in a smoke-filled structure. The hammer simultaneously defines your profession and regularly causes injury. Your tongue's awkward, heat-conducting, and consistently pinching at inopportune moments. Fingertip burns outnumber successful material manipulations. When metal slips and grip fails, paternal advice merely suggests more intentional gripping. You occasionally contemplate consigning them to flames as punishment. Your chisel, once sharp, now merely suggests cutting capability after years of shaping, splitting, scraping, and occasional lock manipulation during neighborly emergencies. Files, awls, punches, rivet sets. Your workbench resembles medieval torture implements. Functionally, similarities exist. Every tool has punctured, crushed, pinched, or lacerated you. Your hands develop anticipatory reactions, flinching at unfamiliar implements. Your protective apron theoretically shields you with protection, means collecting hot metal fragments against your body like incendiary embraces. More burn marks than intact material. The leather becomes corpse rigid during winter months. Despite everything, you maintain these tools meticulously sharpening, oiling, organizing nightly, because their failure means your failure. Without functional tools, work ceases, income disappears, sustenance becomes uncertain. Your tools represent livelihood while simultaneously declaring war on your digits, vertebrae, and mental well-being. Daily they communicate. We enable survival while gradually destroying you. Your response acknowledges this paradox while requesting hammer transfer. Though lacking royal status, military leadership, or aristocratic privileges, without your services, community function ceases within days. As blacksmith, you're universally needed. You represent medieval equivalents of technical support, emergency services, and roadside assistance combined into one soot-covered individual, emanating smoke and resignation. Knights require weaponry. You manufacture it. Agricultural implements break. You repair them. Religious bells crack. Bakery equipment malfunctions. Pastoral enclosures fail. Invariably, you're summoned. Everyone approaches, mid-task, soil-covered and entitled, prefacing requests with acknowledgement of your busyness, followed by immediate demands, phrases haunting your existence. Gratitude remains notably absent. Your service is presumed obligatory, practically birthright ordained. When their tools function, structures remain secure, or defensive equipment performs adequately. They depart with minimal acknowledgement. As though you should feel privileged repairing corroded containers at dusk for meager compensation. Payment varies unpredictably. Sometimes currency, sometimes goods, sometimes forgotten promises. One customer provided deceased poultry with exaggerated culinary potential. You become the universal problem solver, regardless of responsibility. Gate hinges bent from improper usage, your problem. Weapons damaged during intoxicated confrontations, your responsibility. Mysterious, unidentifiable metal objects requiring restoration. Naturally, your domain. Yet the village rarely raises toasts to you. The acclaim goes to the knight with his gleaming armor, the priest with his flowing robes, or the miller with his prize goat. You're the backdrop essential, but invisible, a fixture rather than a figure. But deep in your coal-blackened heart lies a quiet certainty. Without your hands, their world would crumble within days. Fields would lie fallow, homes would collapse, horses would stumble lame. They may compose no ballads about you, but their entire existence rests silently upon the steel you've shaped. One might think peace brings joy to all no marauders, no village raids, no frantic nobles demanding weapons by dusk. But for you, peace is financial ruin. While you craft plowshares and hinges by necessity, warfare is what truly fills your coffers. When conflict erupts, your forge becomes the village's beating heart. Orders flood in, swords needing sharpening, armor requiring mending, arrowheads by the hundreds. Even horseshoes deteriorate faster beneath panic-stricken cavalry. Your bellows roar day and night, the coals glow brighter, and silver coins clink satisfyingly in your leather pouch. Exhaustion may rack your body, but your table groans with food, and your tavern debts momentarily vanish. Then comes the dreaded peace treaty. The Lord's herald announces the cessation of hostilities. The knights return to their halls, and suddenly your workshop stands eerily quiet. No more urgent weapon repairs or armor commissions, just a weathered farmer offering 3 wizened onions for a sickle sharpening. Domestic implements, cauldrons, hinges, cooking, spits keep your forge lit, but barely your family fed. The villagers expect miracles from your hammer, but offer compensation worthy of a stable boy. You transform from craftsman to merchant beggar, negotiating for fair payment like a desperate trader in the marketplace. Heaven forbid you suggest higher prices. The villagers regard you as though you've cursed their livestock. It's just hammering metal. They scoff as if molten iron willingly shapes itself while humming sacred chants. Despite yourself, you begin to yearn for discord, not the bloodshed or burning homesteads, but the constant stream of work, the sense of purpose, the satisfaction when armored men crowded your doorway with battle-damaged shields and heavy purses. You were indispensable then. Now you fashion keys for doors nobody bothers locking, mend cookware that deserves burial, and restore implements better suited for historical preservation than fieldwork. Peace brings safety and respite to your neighbors, but delivers economic uncertainty and hunger to your hearth. And in your most private thoughts, never voiced aloud, you occasionally murmur, perhaps a minor skirmish wouldn't hurt, just a small territorial disagreement. For when blades shatter, your children eat. Most occupations offer completion of finished task followed by rest, appreciation, perhaps even a steaming meal. Blacksmithing knows no such conclusion. Your labors never cease, not today, tomorrow, nor in your fitful dreams. Repair 1 implement, and 3 more await attention. Mend a gate hinge, the cartwheel splinters. Complete a nail batch. A villager appears demanding 10 more, longer this time, with payment promised after harvest. Dawn finds you already laboring, and darkness has long fallen before you extinguish the forge. Even in slumber, your mind continues hammering, dreams filled with bellows, sparks, and that persistent debtor who still owes 6 eggs and basic courtesy. The quick repairs are never swift. A villager presents a hopelessly twisted rake, assuring you it needs but a small adjustment. You recognize the reality to hours of heating, hammering, and reshaping while nodding patiently as they repeatedly inquire, finished yet? Just as you contemplate a moment's respite, perhaps a draught of something not tasting of smoke and regret, your apprentice bursts in. The friar's fallen ill. His horse needs shoeing immediately. Naturally, you comply because, in this village, blacksmith translates to universal emergency solution. The forge demands constant vigilance. Fires don't maintain themselves. Tools corrode when neglected. Summer heat shifts your anvil. Winter cold cracks your bellows. Everything perpetually teeters between decay and imminent collapse. Even holy days provide no respite. Sunday ostensibly offers rest until someone's ox cart splinters en route to market. Suddenly, you're donning your apron, half-conscious, silently praying the priest doesn't discover you violating the Sabbath with hammer in hand. You maintain no inventory of tasks. Such a list implies eventual completion. None exists. Blacksmithing isn't employment, it's perpetual motion. Forge, mend, repeat until either your body surrenders or your hammer shatters. The most peculiar aspect, despite everything, you secretly cherish it. Logic suggests that transforming iron through sheer force should earn two basic rewards: sustenance and slumber. Reality proves otherwise. For medieval blacksmiths, meals and rest aren't givens, they're rarities, like unpolluted water or appreciative customers. Consider nourishment. You labor from first light until darkness, burning energy like wildfire, yet receive meager compensation. A chunk of coarse bread, lukewarm pottage containing yesterday's root vegetables, and occasionally, if fortune smiles, a morsel of preserved pork on feast days, which seldom occur. You consume your meal standing, one hand gripping tongs, the other shielding your food from forge debris. Meals are hurried, conversation reduced to grunts, and should someone interrupt with a broken latch, your stew grows cold while your hunger persists. You don't eat for pleasure but survival. Energy in, labor out. Then comes sleep, or rather, its cruel imitation. When finally collapsing onto your pallet, your hands pulse with pain, your spine feels shattered, and your ears continue ringing from the day's metallic percussion. Your bed, a straw-filled sack, either impossibly lumpy, flattened beyond comfort, or housing mysterious creatures. Your covering, a singed woolen blanket, perpetually smelling of forge smoke, stale ale, and resignation. Just as consciousness fades, your mind recalls the unfulfilled order, the peculiarly cracked hinge, or the payment still outstanding for that wagon wheel repaired 3 weeks prior. Sleep becomes negotiation. You lie wakeful, calculating acceptable repair delays before dawn brings pounding at your door. Then come the midnight emergencies: a dislodged horseshoe, a storm-damaged door, or a nobleman's sword requiring immediate sharpening before dawn's hunt, because clearly your rest holds no value. You learn to subsist on fragments, hasty bites, brief naps, and sheer determination. In your world, production supersedes nourishment. Deadlines outrank rest. Meals and sleep aren't respites from labor, merely brief pauses between hammer strikes. You eat when possible, sleep when permitted, and hope the coals survive until morning. Once, in distant childhood memory, your hands knew softness. Those days vanished into smoke. Your fingers have metamorphosed into living tools, rigid, inflamed, fissured, and calloused, until sensation registers only through pain. Quill holding eludes you. Bootlacing challenges you. Yet you grasp scorching tongs with the casual indifference of someone whose relationship with burning has evolved beyond fear into grudging partnership. Every finger joint announces movement with audible protest. Your knuckles resemble victims of repeated assault. Your palms display a topography of blisters, recent and ancient, layered like geological strata. Need to determine the season. Count the blisters. Exceeding 5 indicates summer's arrival. Fingernails have departed multiple times, some cleanly, others reluctantly. Once your thumb suffered such crushing, it remained blackened fortnight long. Work continued regardless. You simply switched hands and increased your repertoire of grunts. Lacerations arrive with predictable regularity, sometimes from jagged metal, sometimes from rebellious files, sometimes from iron's stubborn resistance. Weekly, something releases blood. You bind it with cloth scraps, mutter profanities, and continue laboring. Burns, however, dominate your dermal landscape. Some merely whisper warnings that iron forgives nothing. Others speak louder, sizzling, blistering, leaving permanent chronicles across your skin. You've branded yourself more frequently than any cattle herder marks his livestock. And remarkably, indignation has transformed into resignation. Grip strength alone has flourished. You crush walnuts with effortless contempt, but fine motor control long vanished. Objects slip from your grasp, your fingers tremble in cold weather. Though merely your hands belong to a septuagenarian knight who survived 3 campaigns only to wager for sustenance with tavern dice. Yet these broken appendages preserve your existence. They form swords, repair mechanisms, and wield the hammer upon which your reputation stands. They throb ceaselessly, but function reliably, because in this profession, bodily integrity matters less than continued movement. Candor compels admission. Your personal aroma leaves much desired. In truth, cleanliness has eluded you since early childhood. From the moment you became apprenticed, your scent permanently shifted toward smoldering rubbish mingled with charred meat and desperation. Welcome to the blacksmith's existence, where regardless of scrubbing intensity, you eternally exude essence of conflagration. The forge blazes throughout daylight, and you, likewise, smolder. Smoke permeates your garments, hair, and epidermis. Your perspiration has evolved beyond normal human, secretions resembling more closely preserved flesh left exposed during temperate conditions. Bathing remains theoretically possible, but practicality intervenes. Water arrives cold, opportunities scarce, and your 6-day workweek ensures complete coating with soot, grease, and coal residue before sunrise completes its ascent. Why attempt cleanliness? Filth reclaims you before breakfast concludes. Your attire offers no redemption. The same singed tunic and scorched leather apron encase you daily. True cleanliness last visited during the previous festival, though even then someone drenched them with ale before midday. Now they hang upon your frame like solidified malodorousness made visible. Perfume, utterly futile. Fragrance survives briefly before the forge consumes it entirely. Blossoms wither nearby, bread hardens prematurely, felines retreat hissing, and most noticeably, humans react. Entering the tavern causes crowds to divide like biblical waters. The innkeeper automatically directs you, windowward not, from courtesy, but self-preservation. Nobody willingly shares seating with the human equivalent of carbonized fencing. Nevertheless, you bear this burden stoically. Mild humiliation exceeds anonymity. You possess identity. Villagers murmur, there stands the blacksmith, combining respect with nasal self-defense. Though perhaps not the settlement's most charming resident, you certainly rank among its most aromatic. Besides, smelling of fire signifies productivity, iron scent indicates craftsmanship, and exuding leather, saturated with soot and resignation, that simply confirms professionalism. The forge claimed you before you drew first breath. Your destiny hammered out by your father's weathered hands and inherited like an ancient, rusted heirloom. Now the cycle continues through your own son. While other children chase wooden swords through meadows, your boy hauls coal, works the bellows with his small frame, and steadies the tongs as molten sparks cascade around him. Don't flinch, you murmur, your voice barely audible above the forge's roar. Though barely 7, he already carries the unmistakable scent of scorched metal and damp burlap, the perfume of his inheritance. Guilt flickers briefly in your chest, but fades just as quickly. This isn't cruelty, it's preparation, survival distilled to its essence. As he observes you wielding the hammer, his eyes widen with that familiar mixture of reverence and trepidation. You recognize that gaze. It mirrors how you once looked at your father when he seemed an immovable mountain of a man. Now you understand the truth. He wasn't forged from stone, but from exhaustion and the weight of responsibility. You impart everything to the boy, judging heat by its shifting colors, the difference between tapping and striking, how to listen as the metal speaks its secrets. Your voice rises sometimes, habit rather than anger. Hold it properly. That metal's gone cold, it's just a burn. Save your tears. You offer tenderness when possible, tales by firelight, a morsel of dried fruit during lean times. But gentleness evaporates quickly in the forge's heat. The work demands priority. Soon his hands will mirror yours, calloused palms like leather, fingertips immune to heat. His spine will bow before his voice deepens, and he'll master sleeping through the persistent ringing in his ears, waking before dawn without prompting. His clothes will become too small while his collection of burn scars grows. And when your body finally surrenders, knees buckling, shoulders seizing, lungs failing, he'll take up the hammer your fingers can no longer grasp. Some might condemn this relentless cycle, arguing it should end. But this lineage of soot, steel, and survival has persisted through countless generations. You're not merely passing down a trade, you're entrusting him with a legacy, a forge whose fire never truly dies. So you raise your son to continue what you began, not from callousness, but because someone must ensure the flames endure. Your lifetime spent too near to fire, shouldering too much iron, inhaling too little pure air, has exacted its toll. Your body's decline was never a question of if, only when. Now that moment arrives. Your knees protest like ancient hinges in a tempest, your back permanently curved. Your fingers, once powerful enough to bend metal to your will, now tremble, holding a simple cup. The forge still bellows its fierce song, but your arms no longer answer its call. The hammer grows impossibly heavier each day, as if conscious it must soon find new hands. Your ending comes not with glory or fanfare. No heroic conclusion awaits. No minstrel composes your tale. You simply decelerate. Tasks shift gradually to your son's capable hands. You observe more than participate. When he seeks guidance, you sometimes struggle to retrieve answers once immediate. Villagers still acknowledge you respectfully, but they bring their work to your son now. The calluses belong to him. Fresh burns mark his skin. The burden of craft has transferred to younger shoulders, and in silence, pride warms your chest. Wealth never found you. No lands, books. You maintained sharp blades, functional wheels, swinging gates, and productive farms. The world rarely offered thanks, yet it moved forward because of your labors. You'll likely never witness your 50th year, few blacksmiths do. The damage accumulates. Lungs darkened by decades of smoke, joints eroded like stone against stone, heart exhausted from relentless heat and exertion. Yet when you depart, your work remains. Nails securing church doors, blades at noblemen's sides, horses properly shod. You leave no titles behind, only tools, scars, and a son who wields your hammer. In your world, this legacy suffices. They'll likely place you in an unadorned grave, no gilded markers, no statues, merely your name etched in wood and the forge that lives on in memory. But every metallic ring echoing through the village after you've gone, that's the sound of your continuing work. You never claimed knighthood. You didn't charge into battle beneath fluttering banners or dan gleaming armor that caught sunlight. But that armor took shape beneath your hammer. Though you never tilled fields, your plows carved furrows through soil. You never baked bread, but your hands formed the oven doors. No castle rose directly from your efforts, yet every nail in its beams, every hinge on its gates, bore your touch, your fire. As a blacksmith in the medieval world, you occupied a position of profound importance. While nobility debated politics and monarchs exchanged crowns, you remained steadfast at your forge day after day, year after year, fashioning the world piece by meticulous piece, countless small components, rivets, hooks, braces, buckles, nothing that attracted crowds, everything that held civilization together. Your existence resonated with noise, but your legacy whispers. No troubadours composed verses about your hammer. No poets praised your tongs. Yet every functioning wheel, unbroken sword, and barn door that swings properly instead of collapsing each bears your signature. Passersby observed your forge and noticed only smoke. They detected sweat and soot and presumed that comprised your entire story. But within that humble structure existed a symphony of heat and steel, of creation and perseverance. You didn't merely forge iron. You forged civilization itself, one horseshoe, one blade, one nail at a time. And now, long after your hands have grown still, the fire continues. Your son raises your hammer. Your grandson learns to read the heat. Your name may fade from collective memory, but the tools you crafted endure, passing from hand to hand through generations. No crown ever graced your head, no honors bestowed, no celebrations marked your achievements. Yet without your contribution, nothing moved, no carts rolled, no armies advanced, no homes stood secure. You formed the foundation beneath historical accounts, the glowing ember beneath royal chronicles. This matters profoundly because, in a world constructed of wood, stone, and human determination, you embodied the transformative fire, the quiet spark that converted raw ore into progress. You weren't merely part of the world, you were essential to its continued functioning. Long before alchemy became associated with secretive European laboratories and robed mystics whispering over bubbling vessels, it represented something far more sacred and ancient. Its true genesis lies not in medieval Europe, but amid the shimmering heat of ancient Egypt, where transformation transcended scientific manipulation to become a divine principle woven throughout every aspect of life and death. The ancient Egyptians named it Chemia, derived from chem, signifying black land, the dark, fertile soil deposited by the Nile's annual floods. This term extended beyond geographic description to embody profound spiritual significance. For Egyptians, black symbolized potential, abundance, and raw material awaiting transformation. Thus, Egypt itself became a living metaphor for nature's transformative powers. From this concept eventually emerged the term alchemy, alchemia. Yet, Egyptian alchemy transcended the later obsession with metallic transmutation. For these ancient practitioners, alchemical processes permeated existence. They manifested in mummification rituals, where mortal remains underwent preservation, transformation, and preparation for eternity. In temple ceremonies, where priests combined oils, herbs, and minerals into sacred concoctions. In celestial movements, soil cultivation, and even the fundamental acts of baking bread and brewing beer, transformation, they believed, constituted the very language through which gods communicated. Indeed, Egyptian alchemy never existed as purely physical practice. Its core remained deeply spiritual. To transform something externally required first understanding its inner nature. This fundamental principle would echo throughout centuries of alchemical texts across diverse cultures. According to certain legends, these early Egyptian alchemists received guidance from a divine figure, Thoth, the ibis-headed deity, representing wisdom, magic, and lunar forces. Tradition holds that Thoth revealed creation's secrets, transformation's mysteries, and the soul's journey beyond physical death. These profound revelations were reportedly inscribed upon a mystical artifact known as the Emerald Tablet. However, before exploring that connection, we must acknowledge a fundamental truth. Alchemy originated not as gold-seeking endeavor, but as a sacred science of existence itself. In Egypt arose the primordial flame that would ignite all subsequent alchemical traditions, from Persia to Paris, each tracing its lineage back to this ancient, fertile realm. If ancient Egypt birthed alchemy, then Thoth served as its divine midwife. Within Egyptian mythology, Thoth transcended ordinary godhood. He embodied knowledge, magical arts, writing, temporal measurement, and universal laws themselves. Depicted with an ibis head crowned by a lunar disk, Thoth represented perfect equilibrium. In a civilization preoccupied with order and transformation, he functioned as the sacred scribe, recording all hidden truths. According to mythic accounts, Thoth didn't merely teach alchemical principles, he personified them. Egyptians believed he authored countless volumes containing divine wisdom, while most remained inaccessible to mortals. One fragment of his knowledge would alter history's course. The enigmatic Emerald Tablet. Whispers of the Emerald Tablet have reverberated through ages, like an enigma etched into civilization's foundations. Reportedly inscribed on green crystal or emerald stone, this tablet contained a concise, poetic text barely spanning a dozen lines. Yet those brief verses supposedly held the ultimate key to transforming matter, spirit, and reality itself. The text begins with a sentence that has captivated thinkers across millennia. That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. This principle of correspondence suggests that microcosm and macrocosm mirror each other. Celestial events reflect within the human soul. Laboratory transformations echo throughout the cosmos. Rather than providing explicit gold-making instructions, the Emerald Tablet offered a comprehensive worldview. It proposed that nothing remains fixed. Everything possesses potential for refinement, elevation, transmutation, not merely lead into gold, but ignorance into wisdom, chaos into harmony, mortality into divinity. The tablet also references the one thing, creation's ultimate source, describing how it ascends from earth and descends from heaven, carrying all creation's power in its wake. Various interpretations identified this one thing as the philosopher's stone, the soul, ethereal substance, or consciousness itself. Perhaps the tablet's greatest mystery concerned not its content, but who could truly comprehend it. One needed to transcend mere scholarship to become a genuine seeker. This sacred riddle, attributed to Thoth's wisdom, would survive Egypt's decline and travel like a sacred flame across borders and epochs, first to Persia, then throughout the world. As Egypt's golden era faded, alchemy persisted, migrating along trade routes, carried by scribes, mystics, and conquerors. It passed into another ancient empire's keeping, Persia. This transition represented more than knowledge transfer. In Persian hands, alchemy underwent its own transformation, blending spiritual illumination with philosophical depth. Persian alchemical thought drew profound influence from Zoroastrianism, one of history's earliest monotheistic faiths. Central to this tradition was duality, an eternal struggle between light and darkness, truth and falsehood, purity and corruption. Fire, considered the purest element in Zoroastrian belief, transcended mere symbolism to become sacred embodiment of divine wisdom. This sacred fire would later illuminate the crucibles of early Persian alchemists, while spiritual concepts flourished. A Greek-Egyptian mystic named Zosimos of Panopolis provided alchemy its first definitive voice, one that resonates even today. Living in Roman Egypt approximately during the 3rd or 4th century CE, Zosimos defied conventional philosophical boundaries. His writings merged technical descriptions of furnaces, distillation apparatus, and elixirs with extraordinary visionary narratives. In his most renowned vision, he witnesses himself dismembered, consumed by flames, and transformed within an alchemical furnace. Rather than horrific, this experience represents divine revelations, symbolizing the self's metaphorical death and the soul's purification. Zosimos perceived alchemy beyond metallic transformation. He believed practitioners themselves required transformation, just as base materials must decompose before achieving golden perfection. Alchemists needed to experience suffering, purification, and transcendence. In his understanding, alchemy constituted a mystery encompassing both spiritual and material dimensions. He pioneered spiritual alchemy concepts, remarkably ahead of his era. Zosimos's texts abound with mysterious symbolism: lions devouring serpents, human forms dissolving into colored vapors, divine entities emerging from flames. These represented not chemical formulas, but metaphorical expressions of the soul's journey toward perfection. Zosimos emphasized that genuine knowledge could never be purchased or memorized. It required earnest pursuit. The alchemist's path demanded discipline, endurance through suffering, and personal revelation. His influence would extend across centuries and continents, and though many texts were lost or misunderstood, one conclusion remained clear. Alchemy had evolved beyond proto-scientific inquiry to become sacred philosophical tradition. As ancient wisdom's embers flickered across Egyptian, Greek, and Persian remnants, a new empire arose, heralding wisdom's golden age under Islam's banner. From the 8th through 13th centuries, an immense intellectual renaissance flourished. While Europe descended into its dark ages, cities like Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba became sanctuaries for philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and alchemical arts. At this revival's center stood a figure whose name would become legendary: Jabir ibn Hayyan, known to Western scholars as Gibber, transcending singular roles as chemist or philosopher. Jabir embodied both disciplines' synthesis. Often celebrated as chemistry's founding father, his alchemical contributions proved so profound they established foundations for modern scientific inquiry. Working within the Abbasid Caliphate's courts during the 8th century, Jabir approached alchemy not as mystical practice, but as structured, testable discipline. He introduced laboratory methodologies, still recognizable today: distillation, crystallization, sublimation. His innovations included new instruments, refined acids, and over 100 texts, merging philosophical principles with chemical experimentation. While Jabir revolutionized the practical aspects of alchemy, he remained deeply devoted to its spiritual essence. Far from abandoning mysticism, he wove it intricately into his scientific approach. Jabir's worldview centered on the belief that all existence comprised four fundamental elements: earth, air, fire, and water, each imbued with divine qualities that transcended mere physical properties. His system brilliantly integrated numerology, celestial influences, and symbolic correspondences into a cohesive framework of understanding. At the heart of Jabir's philosophy lay a profound insight. Every transformation occurring in the material realm reflected a parallel transformation within the human spirit. Perhaps his most enduring contribution was introducing the concept of meson perfect, balances alchemy's ultimate principle. He taught that just as bodily health depends on equilibrium between opposing forces, metals strive toward perfection through balanced composition. In this elegant system, gold represented not merely a precious metal but matter existing in perfect harmony. The revolutionary implication was clear. If balance could be achieved through precise, brute, intentional processes, even the most common metals might be elevated to perfection. Jabir's wisdom couldn't be contained by political or cultural boundaries. His manuscripts, translated into Latin, swept across medieval Europe like intellectual wildfire, igniting a renaissance of alchemical thought. Western practitioners built upon his foundations, often unaware they were inheriting the legacy of a Persian master. Through Jabir ibn Hayyan, alchemy underwent its most profound metamorphosis, evolving from symbolic tradition into systematic method without sacrificing its spiritual essence. It became simultaneously a rigorous discipline and a sacred roadmap, guiding both matter and consciousness toward divine perfection. While the Islamic world flourished intellectually, medieval Europe remained shrouded in superstition and religious orthodoxy. Yet knowledge, like water, inevitably finds its path. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, alchemical wisdom began seeping westward, carried by merchant caravans, hidden in diplomatic exchanges, preserved in precious manuscripts that passed from hand to reverent hand. The transmission points between East and West became crucibles of cultural exchange. Alexandria, once home to antiquity's greatest library, still echoed with ancient wisdom. More significantly, the cities of Islamic Spentalido and Cordoba merged as intellectual crossroads where the seemingly impossible occurred. Christian, Jewish, and Muslim scholars collaborating in rare harmony. In these multicultural havens, translators labored over Arabic texts with near-religious devotion, deciphering the cryptic works of Jabir, Zosimos, and Aristotle, breathing life into forgotten knowledge that would awaken Europe from intellectual slumber. By the 12th century, Europe's intellectual hunger had become ravenous. The rediscovery of ancient alchemical texts detonated like cultural lightning across the continent. What arrived wasn't merely proto-chemistry, but alchemy in its magnificent totality, a seamless fusion of spiritual wisdom, philosophical insight, and material transformation. Monasteries, ostensibly devoted exclusively to Christian contemplation, became secret repositories of esoteric knowledge, with strange manuscripts concealed behind religious texts. Monks who publicly purified their souls through prayer privately purified metals in hidden laboratories, recognizing the profound parallels between both processes. In secluded chambers, illuminated by flickering candlelight, European intellectuals became entranced by alchemy's most tantalizing promise: transmutation, not merely of lead into gold, but of the imperfect human soul into something divine. Among the most influential imports was the enigmatic Turba Philosophorum, or Assembly of Philosophers, purporting to record a council of ancient sages debating nature's deepest secrets. The mysterious Picatrix soon followed an extensive Arabic grimoire, blending astrological wisdom with alchemical practices. These weren't mere recipe collections. They were comprehensive worldviews that planted transformative seeds in receptive minds across Europe. Latin translations of these forbidden texts circulated clandestinely, often disguised as innocuous, philosophical, or religious treatises to evade accusations of heresy. Alchemy represented something revolutionary and therefore dangerous. It challenged the immutable order of creation. If base metals could become noble, couldn't ordinary people transcend their station? If humans could manipulate nature's laws, might they approach divinity without ecclesiastical mediation? The church hierarchy observed this intellectual ferment with growing unease. Yet alchemy's allure proved irresistible, offering a path to perfection independent of institutional authority. As the medieval period progressed, Europe gradually claimed the alchemical tradition as its own. The sacred flame that had illuminated Egyptian temples, Persian laboratories, and Baghdad's academies now burned within Europe's castles, monasteries, and emerging secret societies. Alchemy had completed its geographic journey, but its philosophical evolution was about to accelerate dramatically. By the late Middle Ages, European alchemy had transformed into something transcending mere scholarly pursuit. It had become a spiritual quest of mythic proportions. At its radiant center stood one legendary object, one consuming obsession: the philosopher's stone. This wasn't merely another alchemical substance. It represented the ultimate mystery, secret wrapped in allegory, concealed within labyrinthine symbols, and protected by enigmatic riddles. Legends attributed to it dual miraculous powers: the ability to transmute base metals into perfect gold, and to confer immortality through the legendary elixir of life. The Philosopher's Stone became Western esotericism's supreme artifacts, simultaneously material and divine. Yet the most perceptive alchemists understood that the stone wasn't primarily physical. Its true nature was spiritual. Across countless manuscripts, it acquired multiple identities: lapis philosophorum, the red stone, the powder of projection. Some envisioned it as a tangible crimson crystal. Others recognized it as metaphor for spiritual illumination. But universal agreement existed on one point: it embodied the key to ultimate transformation. The alchemical worldview conceived the cosmos as a living, breathing entity, perpetually evolving toward perfection. Even metals possessed vitality, maturing gradually within Earth's womb. Lead represented not an inherently inferior substance, but merely immature gold. Just as nature progressed inexorably toward harmony, human consciousness could similarly evolve. The Philosopher's Stone functioned as catalyst for this evolutionary process, accelerating what nature accomplished over millennia. Legendary European alchemists Albertus Magnus, Roger Bacon, and later the revolutionary Paracelsus dedicated their lives to unraveling nature's processes in pursuit of this transcendent truth. They constructed elaborate furnaces, interpreted celestial movements, gathered exotic minerals, and composed cryptic texts populated with serpents devouring their tails, solar kings, dragons, in combat, and crowned sovereigns, each symbol encoding specific stages in the transformative journey of matter and consciousness. The creation of the Philosopher's Stone followed a sacred path called the magnum opus, or great work. It began with nigredo, the blackening symbolizing death, decay, and dissolution of ego attachments. Next came albedo, the whitening representing purification of essence. Then citrinitas, the yellowing marking spiritual illumination. Finally, rubedo, the reddening heralding rebirth and the stone's emergence in its perfected form. Why enshroud this process in such elaborate metaphor? Because genuine transformation, alchemists believed, belonged exclusively to those spiritually prepared to receive it. The stone would reveal itself only to seekers who had achieved inner readiness, not merely intellectual comprehension, but spiritual maturity. While many sought gold's material wealth, the truly wise alchemist recognized that the only element truly worthy of perfection was the human soul itself. As alchemy embedded itself more deeply in medieval European culture, it paradoxically retreated from public view into secrecy's protective shadows. What had once flourished as open discourse in ancient temples and scholarly courts transformed into hidden practice. Multiple factors drove this retreat: intensifying religious scrutiny, political suspicion, and alchemy's evolution into an increasingly complex symbolic language, comprehensible only to initiated adepts. The Church, wielding unprecedented authority over European intellectual life, regarded alchemy with profound ambivalence. Some mystically inclined Christians embraced it, recognizing in metal's transmutation a perfect analogy for Christ's resurrection and the soul's redemption. Others condemned it as dangerous heresy. The notion that humans might manipulate nature's fundamental laws or achieve spiritual transcendence outside ecclesiastical authority threatened the established order. Self-preservation compelled alchemists to disguise their teachings within layers of allegory and cryptic symbolism. This necessity birthed an underground alchemical tradition concealed within secret societies, encoded manuscripts, and esoteric symbols, decipherable only to initiates. The Rosicrucians, mysterious brotherhood emerging, dramatically, in the 17th century claimed inheritance of ancient alchemical wisdom, transmitted through unbroken lineage from Egypt and Arabia. Their manifestos proclaimed a new age of spiritual enlightenment, cosmic harmony, and hidden sciences that would transform European consciousness. Though their historical existence remains debated, their visionary ideas spread with extraordinary velocity, inspiring generations of seekers throughout the continent. Paralleling this movement were the Freemasons, whose origins lay with medieval stoneworkers, but whose elaborate rituals resonated profoundly with alchemical philosophy, progressive purification, inner transformation, and the quest for spiritual illumination. Whether or not they practiced literal alchemy, their symbolic language perfectly aligned with the great work's ultimate aim, constructing the perfected self from raw human potential. Alchemy found sanctuary in enigmatic works like the Mutus Libra, remarkable tome containing no text, only mysterious symbolic illustrations that silently conveyed the secrets of the great work. Other manuscripts employed the elusive green language, a sophisticated system of wordplay, double entendres, and linguistic puzzles that veiled profound truths from the uninitiated. The alchemist lived a fascinating double life, publicly appearing as a respectable scholar, physician, or monks seemingly conforming to societal norms, privately nurturing revolutionary ideas, pursuing divine mysteries through the transformative dance of fire and metal, spirit and stone. This necessary secrecy became alchemy's greatest strength. Like embers glowing beneath ash, alchemical wisdom smoldered unseen, transmitted secretly from master to apprentice across generations. In these shadowed sanctuaries, alchemy flourished not merely as a proto-science, but as a living, breathing philosophy. Then came alchemy's greatest trial, the birth of modern chemistry. During the 17th and 18th centuries, a quiet, intellectual revolution unfolded, one that would simultaneously inherit and entomb alchemy's legacy. The Age of Enlightenment dawned, and suddenly the mystical symbolism that had clothed alchemical thought for centuries found itself unwelcome in academia's hallowed chambers. In its place arose a new intellectual framework: empiricism, logic, and reproducible experimentation. Alchemy's successor had emerged from its own crucible, its name, chemistry. This transformation wasn't a sudden execution, but rather a gradual metamorphosis. Many pioneering chemists were, in fact, reformed alchemists who simply redirected their focus. The spiritual quest for perfection and soul transmutation gave way to measurable material change. The evocative dragons and celestial symbols disappeared, replaced by precise instruments, careful measurements, and methodical documentation. Robert Boyle delivered what many consider the decisive shift with his groundbreaking 1661 work, The Skeptical Chemist. Here, Boyle proposed that matter consisted of atoms, and that chemical reactions required no mystical forces to explain their mechanisms. While not dismissing alchemy outright, he systematically stripped away its esoteric language. Boyle acknowledged the alchemist's power to transform matter, but insisted these transformations must be explained through natural laws rather than mystical allegory. The revolution accelerated when Antoine Lavoisier discovered oxygen's role in combustion, effectively dismantling the ancient four-element theory of earth, air, fire, and water. The periodic table soon followed. Laboratories became the new temples of knowledge, secular, systematic, and skeptical. Alchemy, with its cryptic symbolism and mystical undertones, became increasingly viewed as a primitive embarrassment to real science. Yet here lies the fascinating paradox. Chemistry owes its very existence to alchemy. The laboratory techniques, experimental apparatus, and fundamental curiosity emerged from alchemy's fiery crucible. Alchemy blazed the trail that chemistry would later pave. Nevertheless, the world was transforming. The Industrial Revolution demanded practical results, not enigmatic riddles. Governments funded laboratories instead of mystical lodges. The philosopher's stone gave way to the microscope, the sacred Athanor furnace to the precise Bunsen burner. What once embodied sacred mystery had become merely material, but alchemy proved remarkably resilient. In secluded corners and contemplative minds, its flame continued to flicker no longer as a science per se, but as a profound symbol of transformation, unity, and the perpetual dance between matter and spirit. While humanity increasingly turned to chemistry for factual answers, some still looked to alchemy for deeper meaning. For certain fires never truly extinguish. They simply smolder beneath the surface, waiting. Alchemy may have vanished from scientific institutions, but it never truly perished. Instead, it underwent its own alchemical transformation, precisely as its teachings had always prophesied. What began in Egypt's ancient tombs, refined in Persia's fire temples, and encoded in medieval Europe's secret manuscripts, didn't simply disappear. It evolved, branching into modern chemistry, psychology, medicine, and contemporary spirituality. While its outer form dissolved, its inner essence endured. The 20th century witnessed the emergence of a different kind of alchemist, not wielding crucibles and furnaces, but armed with notebooks and insights into the human psyche. Carl Jung, the brilliant Swiss psychologist, rediscovered alchemy's hidden wisdom and breathed new life into its symbolism. Jung proposed that the ancient alchemists weren't merely attempting to transmute metals. They were unconsciously mapping humanity's psychological journey. The blackening phase, Negrado, represented depression and dissolution of the ego. The whitening albedo signified psychological insight. The reddening rubedo heralded the birth of an integrated self. Jung recognized that the philosopher's stone symbolized individuation, the process of becoming psychologically whole. Alchemy, Jung revealed, had always transcended mere metallurgy. Today, alchemy's influence permeates our culture. Self-improvement books preaching personal transformation, heroic narratives depicting death and rebirth, even our everyday language, refine, distill, purify, all echo the alchemist's ancient quest. Even within modern science, alchemy's spirit persists. Nuclear physicists literally transmute elements in reactors. Theoretical physicists discuss dark matter and unified fields with the same wonder alchemists once reserved for quintessence and the cosmic ether. Humanity's search for fundamental reality continues unabated. Only our terminology has changed. Perhaps alchemy's greatest legacy lies in its holistic vision. It never artificially separated spirit from matter or science from mystery. It taught that genuine transformation of the world begins with transformation of the self. Behind every alchemical experiment lay a profound question. Who are you becoming through this process? In our era dominated by technological acceleration and cold data, alchemy whispers an eternal truth. To truly change anything, you must also be willing to change yourself. Thus, the alchemist's sacred fire continues to burn not in physical crucibles, but within human hearts, waiting, calling, transforming. For alchemy was never merely a science. It was a mirror reflecting our deepest potential. At first glance, Cappadocia appears like a surreal painting its landscape, punctuated by towering stone chimneys and undulating ridges sculpted by millennia of wind and water. Tourists marvel at the otherworldly beauty visible above ground, but few realize that the true wonder lies beneath their feet. Hidden under this Turkish landscape stretches a forgotten world, intricate labyrinth of subterranean cities, extending 4 miles beneath the Earth's surface. These aren't crude caves or makeshift refuges, but sophisticated urban complexes concealed underground, complete with living quarters, sacred chapels, water wells, food storage chambers, livestock stables, and even educational spaces. Some descend an astonishing 18 levels deep, once housing thousands of inhabitants in the silent embrace of the earth. Most remarkable of all, many of these elaborate underground cities remained completely unknown to the modern world until the mid-20th century. The discovery came in 1963, when a resident of Derinkuyu was renovating his humble home. As he demolished a wall in his basement, he encountered not earth or stone, but emptiness, a mysterious tunnel stretching into darkness. Following this passage led to another, then to a chamber then to a spiraling staircase, descending into the unknown. He had inadvertently uncovered an ancient doorway into one of the largest underground cities ever discovered. It was as if an entire civilization had deliberately vanished beneath the earth, leaving behind nothing but profound silence. Yet, Derinkyuu proved to be just one piece of a vast underground network. Over subsequent decades, archaeologists have identified hundreds of subterranean settlements throughout Cappadocia, at least 40 major complexes, interconnected through narrow corridors and concealed escape routes. These weren't haphazard burrows, but meticulously designed structures. Massive stone wheels could seal passageways from within, protecting inhabitants from outside threats. Ingenious ventilation shafts channeled fresh air from the surface to the deepest levels. Carefully positioned wells tapped underground water sources, ensuring survival during extended periods of isolation. What compelled people to create something so extraordinary beneath the earth? This question has captivated historians for decades. Theories proliferate. Were these elaborate hideaways from invading armies, monastic retreats for persecuted religious communities, secret spiritual sanctuaries, or perhaps something far more ancient and mysterious? Whatever their purpose, one truth remains clear. Cappadocia transcended mere geography. It represented a refuge, a parallel world beneath the visible one, where entire communities could disappear from the surface and sustain life completely underground. And the deeper one ventures into these subterranean realms, the more enigmatic their story becomes. To comprehend why ancient peoples constructed cities beneath Cappadocia requires understanding the region's unique geology. This landscape is unlike any other on Earth. Millions of years ago, violent volcanic eruptions blanketed central Turkey under thick layers of ash. This volcanic material gradually solidified into a soft, porous stone called tough, remarkably lightweight enough to carve with simple tools, yet structurally sound enough to maintain its integrity across centuries. Nature's artists wined and rain-sculpted this malleable stone into fantastical formations: fairy chimneys, conical spires, mushroom-capped towers. The entire region resembles a dreamscape torn from another world. But the ancient inhabitants didn't merely admire this geological wonder, they collaborated with it. Early settlers recognized that this volcanic tuff offered a magnificent opportunity. They could carve dwellings, sanctuaries, storerooms, and eventually entire communities without needing traditional building materials. These stone chambers provided natural insulation, remaining cool during blistering summers and retaining warmth throughout harsh winters. Above ground, they chiseled elaborate churches into cliff faces, adorning them with vibrant frescoes. But beneath the surface, that's where true ingenuity flourished. The underground journey likely began modestly simple caverns for food storage, thermal regulation, or storm shelter. However, as external threats mounted and populations grew, these humble beginnings expanded. Single rooms connected to form chambers, chambers multiplied into levels, levels developed into complex networks. Once this subterranean evolution began, it continued for centuries, perhaps millennia. Entire civilizations slipped beneath the earth, carving ever deeper, not in random desperation, but with meticulous purpose. Intricate tunnels wove together homes, kitchens, stables, wells, and sacred chapels, like veins in a living organism. Ingenious ventilation shafts pierced upward through the rock, drawing fresh air down through multiple stories of darkness. Their vertical staircases, architectural marvels of survival, stood wide enough for both humans and precious livestock, yet deliberately narrow enough to create perfect defensive choke points against invaders. Perhaps most astonishing is the ancient lineage of these subterranean wonders. While Byzantine Christians expanded many chambers during their era of persecution, archaeological evidence suggests something far more primordial. The deepest, most primitive levels, particularly in the vast complexes of Derinku and Kameklimae, date back to the mighty Hittite Empire or beyond, perhaps as early as 2000 BCE. This volcanic landscape beckoned transformation, and the people of Cappadocia answered with extraordinary vision. Using nothing but primitive tools and boundless determination, they reimagined the very concept of shelter. The earth beneath their feet became not merely foundation, but fortressa, protective womb. An inverted sky filled with whispered secrets and hidden life. But what terrifying force drove them to such extremes? What shadow loomed so threatening that entire communities would abandon the sun to carve lives within stone? That haunting question awaits us next. Beneath the drowsy modern town of Derinku lies something that defies imagination. Not ruins, but an intact metropolis swallowed by earth. A city hidden so completely that humanity forgot its existence until 1963, when a local man's simple home renovation accidentally breached its perimeter. Knocking through a basement wall, he discovered not soil or stone, but emptiness, a yawning passageway stretching beyond his lantern's reach. That shadowy corridor led to chambers, those chambers to hallways, branching and multiplying like roots of some colossal tree. Spiral staircases plunged relentlessly downward, connecting room after room, level after descending level, until explorers stood breathless and awestruck, 18 stories beneath daylight. They had rediscovered Derinku, the largest, deepest subterranean city ever unearthed in Cappadocia, perhaps in all human history. What archaeologists uncovered transcended mere shelter. Derinku wasn't some primitive bunker or emergency hideout. It was a fully functional metropolis hewn entirely from volcanic tuff. Within its labyrinthine embrace lay domestic quarters, ornate churches, communal kitchens, sophisticated wine and oil presses, vast granaries, livestock pens, and even a consecrated baptismal chamber. This underground realm could harbor an estimated 20,000 souls, along with their animals and food reserves. An entire population vanished beneath the Earth's skin. The engineering prowess displayed borders on supernatural. Massive, disc-shaped doors, perfectly balanced stone wheels, weighing tons, could be rolled into place to seal passageways against attackers. These weren't crude barriers, but precision instruments, movable only from within and virtually impenetrable from without. Ventilation shafts, some reaching 55 meters, upward through solid rock, created a constant flow of breathable air, even to the deepest chambers. Hidden wells tapped underground aquifers, ensuring water without surface exposure. Most poignant of all, they carved out a mission school, complete with teaching chambers and study alcoves, evidence that this wasn't merely about physical survival, but cultural preservation. Even facing extinction, they ensured knowledge would continue flowing to the next generation. Yet Derinku's greatest mystery lies not in what was built, but in who first conceived it. Some scholars attribute expansions to early Christians fleeing Roman persecution, or later Byzantine communities escaping Arab raids, but many archaeologists now suspect foundations far more ancient, perhaps laid by Phaeacians, or even the Bronze Age Hittites, millennia before Christ, walked the earth. The truth remains elusive, a whisper lost in stone. What existential dread could drive humans to such extraordinary measures? Was it merely invading armies, as conventional wisdom suggests? Or did they fear something else entirely, something perhaps not human? Daring Q offers no inscriptions, no names carved in triumph, no clear chronology, only rooms, tunnels, and lingering questions. Even today, significant portions remain unexplored, for the deeper one ventures, the less it resembles a mere city, and the more it begins to feel like something else. Consider the sheer audacity of building downward rather than upward. Above-ground construction offers sunlight, open space, and natural ventilation. Underground, builders faced absolute darkness, suffocating confinement, and the crushing weight of earth above. Yet Cappadocia's forgotten architects didn't merely excavate. They engineered with staggering sophistication, creating spaces capable of sustaining thousands of lives for extended periods, perhaps even years, without surfacing. These weren't panicked burrows dug in haste. They were methodically planned ecosystems, layered like living organisms, each level spiraling deeper into the embrace of stone. After centuries of silence, we've barely scratched the surface of these subterranean realms. Countless chambers remain sealed, corridors collapse into impenetrable shadow, doorways lead to unmapped territories. These aren't merely archaeological curiosities, they stand as testament to humanity's indomitable will. They prove that people will go to unimaginable lengths to protect their children, preserve their beliefs, and vanish completely when the world above turns hostile. In that profound act of disappearance, they left behind a message carved not in words, but in living stone. We may never know their individual names or personal stories, but their collective identity speaks through their creation. They were visionaries, engineers, masters of the impossible. They constructed something capable of outlasting empires, something perhaps never meant to be rediscovered at all. Cappadocia whispers a sobering truth: history's most profound realities aren't always visible on the surface. Sometimes the deepest truths are deliberately buried, hidden from conquerors' eyes, shielded from curious explorers, perhaps concealed from the merciless gaze of time itself. What endures is mystery upon layered mystery, the perfect balance of those massive rolling doors, the ventilation shafts that still draw breath from the depths, the miles of unexplored passages stretching into perpetual darkness. Perhaps we'll never fully comprehend Cappadocia's underground purpose. Perhaps we aren't meant to. But walking those silent corridors with the weight of millennia pressing overhead, you sense something primordial stirring in the darkness, not fear, but resilience. When chaos consumed the world above, the people of Cappadocia made an extraordinary choice: to descend together into darkness rather than perish in light. And the patient earth has guarded their legacy with perfect fidelity across the centuries. For our ancestors, sleep wasn't merely unconsciousness, it was a gateway into the numinous. Dreams weren't dismissed as neural static or random mental imagery. They were revered as sacred communications. They arrived as warnings, prophecies, divine instructions, or visitations from realms beyond mortal comprehension. Each night's visions carried potentially life-altering significance. Ancient peoples perceived the boundary between material and spiritual realms not as an impenetrable wall, but as a permeable membrane, and sleep was when that membrane grew thinnest. Dreaming wasn't just biological necessity, It was sacred communion, mysterious revelation, sometimes terrifying encounter. During those vulnerable hours of nocturnal surrender, divine forces could pierce the veil of consciousness and implant messages directly into mortal minds. What appeared in dreams could redirect a monarch's decree, reshape a priest's ritual, or alter a city's destiny. This reverence for dreams transcended cultural boundaries, from Mesopotamia's Fertile Crescent to Egypt's temple complexes and Greece's marble colonnades. Dreams commanded profound respect. People didn't see these nocturnal visions as products of imagination, but as encounters with genuine cosmic forces carrying real-world consequences. Dreams could prophesy military defeat, unmask betrayal among trusted advisors, reveal healing remedies, or demand blood sacrifice. Ignoring a powerful dream wasn't merely unwise, it courted disaster, perhaps catastrophe for an entire community. The dreamer, therefore, wasn't merely resting, they transformed into a vessel, a living conduit temporarily opened to cosmic wisdom. In certain circumstances, particularly vivid dreamers might be elevated to prophets, chosen specifically by deities to receive special revelation. Entire specialized professions emerged dedicated to dream interpretation. Priests, shamans, oracles, and seers developed sophisticated systems for decoding nocturnal symbolism. A serpent appearing in dreams might herald transformation or warn of imminent danger. A rising sun could promise triumph or signal treacherous deception, depending on subtle contextual details. While interpretative frameworks varied across cultures, one principle remained universal. Dreams mattered profoundly. Even now, echoes of that ancient wisdom reverberate through our modern world. We casually speak of following our dreams or waking up to a realization. Little knowing these phrases are remnants of a time when dreams weren't mere metaphors, they were sacred cartography, divine warnings, celestial intelligence, delivered in the vulnerable hours of slumber. Before Freud's analytical couch, before scientists mapped REM cycles, before brain waves were measured and categorized, our ancestors stood in reverent awe before the dreaming mind. For them, the dreamscape wasn't imagination, it was reality itself, and to traverse it was to walk alongside gods. The Sumerians, humanity's first great civilization, pioneered written dream documentation over 5 millennia ago in the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia. These weren't random nighttime fantasies to them. Dreams arrived as direct communications from the divine realm complex, symbolic transmissions laden with cosmic significance. Archaeologists have unearthed clay tablets from ancient Sumerian cities etched with dream accounts, some deeply personal, others profoundly political. Dream interpretation wasn't considered a mystical curiosity, but a rigorous discipline, systematically taught, diligently studied, and universally respected throughout society. The royal courts of Sumer employed specialized dream interpreter scholars trained in deciphering divine messages whose interpretations could alter the trajectory of entire kingdoms. Perhaps the most renowned example of this ancient Oniric tradition appears in the Epic of Gilgamesh, humanity's oldest surviving literary masterpiece. Within its weathered verses, both Gilgamesh and his wild companion Enkidu experience vivid symbolic dreams before their fateful expedition to confront the fearsome Humbaba. Gilgamesh dreams of cosmic battles and mountains crumbling to dust, visions that his mother and court priests meticulously interpret as divine warnings and veiled prophecies. These weren't dismissed as mere nighttime fantasies. They were consulted as sacred navigational tools for the waking world. Sumerian dream theology recognized two distinct categories: dreams carrying divine messages intended to guide or instruct, and those considered empty echoes of daily life. Distinguishing between these required the specialized wisdom of temple priests or diviners, individuals trained to recognize omens, decode symbols, and unravel patterns concealed within sleep's shadowy imagery. Special chambers were constructed within temples where priests and occasionally kings would sleep with deliberate intention, hoping to receive celestial visions. This ritual practice of sacred sleep, later known across cultures as incubation, likely originated with the Sumerians. These divinely inspired dreams were regarded as oracles, sometimes considered even more reliable than waking portents. Dreams also wielded tremendous political power in ancient Mesopotamia. A ruler claiming divine nocturnal visitations could dramatically strengthen his legitimacy or justify controversial decisions. The phrase "the gods told me in a dream" wasn't merely spiritual rhetoric, was raw political authority made manifest. In the Sumerian cosmic worldview, the universe pulsed with meaning, and dreams formed its primordial language. Every image that appeared with a storm, lion, or falling star carried profound significance beyond its surface appearance. In this ancient land, where deities walked among mortals, to dream was to listen attentively, and to ignore those dreams was to risk divine wrath itself. For the ancient Egyptians, dreams transcended mere messages. They were dimensional portals, pathways to commune with gods, glimpses into the afterlife, and sometimes urgent instructions for the living. In a civilization obsessed with eternal existence, sleep wasn't simply physical restoration, it was a rehearsal for death itself, and dreams served as communications from realms beyond mortal comprehension. Egyptian hieroglyphic texts reveal that dreams were considered simultaneously intensely personal and powerfully prophetic. Like their Sumerian contemporaries, Egyptian dream theology recognized two distinct categories: truth dreams sent by gods or spirits to guide, heal, or warn the dreamer, and false dreams considered misleading or stemming from bodily imbalance. Magnificent temples dedicated to deities like Serapis and Thoth became centers for dream incubation rituals. Worshippers would sleep within consecrated temple walls, hoping to receive divine dream visitations. These sacred temple dreams were meticulously recorded, interpreted by specialized priests, and sometimes immortalized in stone carvings. In certain cases, a supplicant might receive not merely visions, but profound healing through the dream experience itself. Among Egypt's most extraordinary dream artifacts stands the Ramesside Dream Book, dating to approximately 1300 BCE. This remarkable papyrus scroll functions essentially as a comprehensive catalog of dream symbols and their associated meanings. It methodically lists over 100 distinct dreams, each paired with precise interpretations. For instance, if a man envisions himself consuming crocodile flesh, the text indicates this signifies imminent power over enemies. Another entry ominously warns that dreaming of drinking warm beer portends approaching sorrow. These interpretations weren't regarded as superstitious fancy. They were taken with utmost seriousness. Pharaohs, military commanders, and high priests all sought counsel from dream interpreters, who functioned as essential intermediaries between mortal dreamers and divine will. Egyptian spiritual cosmology intimately connected dreams to the Katha soul essence. During sleep, the Ka was believed to temporarily depart the physical body, journeying through other realms of existence. What it witnessed there returned to consciousness as dreams. Sometimes these nocturnal visions featured beloved departed relatives or encounters with gods bearing urgent messages. Occasionally, dreams were interpreted as visitations from malevolent spirits, necessitating protective spells to ward off such dangerous influences. Even in elaborate tomb inscriptions, dreams feature prominently. Kings described with reverence how gods appeared to them during night's vulnerable hours, offering divine sanction for their earthly rule or guidance for their eternal legacy. Their enduring message from the land of pyramids and sun gods remains clear. Dreams weren't illusions, they were revelations, and to dream was to momentarily step into eternity itself. In ancient Greece, dreams occupied that liminal space where medicine, mythology, and philosophy converged and conversed. To the Greeks, dreams weren't merely personal experiences. They arrived as cosmic messages delivered by gods, heroes, or sometimes forces from the underworld itself. Yet, unlike earlier civilizations, Greek thinkers also began to question why humans dream, planting the earliest seeds of psychological inquiry that would flower millennia later. The most revered sanctuary for dream revelation in Greece was the Asclepiana healing temple dedicated to Asclepius, the divine physician. Pilgrims journeyed from across the Mediterranean world to sleep within these sacred precincts through a ritual process called incubation. Before surrendering to sleep, they would purify themselves through bathing, fasting, prayer, and sometimes sacrificial offerings, all to prepare both body and soul to receive healing dreams. Within these sacred slumbers, it was widely believed that Asclepius himself would manifest, diagnosing ailments or prescribing treatments, sometimes even performing ethereal surgery within the dream state. Temple priests, known as therapeuti, carefully interpreted these dreams and administered treatments based on divine revelation. This seamless integration of medicine and mysticism commanded profound respect throughout Greek society, and remarkably, it appeared effective. The walls of Asclepius stood covered with countless inscriptions, expressing gratitude for miraculous recoveries attributed to dream healing. Yet dreams in Greece weren't confined to healing purposes. They served political and prophetic functions as well. Throughout Homer's immortal epics, dreams arrive directly from Zeus himself. In the Iliad, the king of gods sends a deliberately deceptive dream to Agamemnon to influence military strategy. In the Odyssey, Penelope poetically describes two gates through which dreams enter the world. One fashioned of horn, from which emerged truthful visions, and another crafted of ivory, which produces only falsehoods. Dream interpretation evolved into a sophisticated discipline. Philosophical giants like Aristotle and Heraclitus contemplated the fundamental nature of dreams, debating whether they originated from divine sources or simply reflected the soul's internal movements. Meanwhile, Artemidorus of Daldis, a 2nd century dream interpreter of considerable renown, composed the Wunderkritiken extraordinary 5-volume manual, systematically explaining how to decode dreams based on the dreamer's profession, gender, social status, and the dream's symbolic elements. His comprehensive work remained an authoritative reference for centuries thereafter. During slumber, ancient Greeks believed the soul partially detached from its bodily vessel, drifting in a mystical borderland where deeper cosmic truths became accessible. Dreams were never trivial to them, whether divine messages or reflections of the soul's own wisdom. Each nocturnal vision carried profound significance. Dreaming transcended mere imagination. It represented a sacred communion with the divine consciousness itself. Throughout antiquity, dreams weren't merely psychological curiosities, but prophetic glimpses beyond time's veil. Civilizations viewed the dreaming mind as a sacred threshold, where the linear constraints of time dissolved, allowing future events to seep into present awareness. To receive a dream was to witness destinies unfolding before its earthly manifestation, a privilege carrying enormous power and weighty responsibility. The historical tapestry of Sumer, Egypt, and Greece is interwoven with accounts of rulers, military strategists, and prophets whose monumental decisions flowed directly from dream revelations. The stakes were extraordinary. Misinterpreting a dream could collapse an empire, while correctly deciphering its message might alter history's course entirely. In Mesopotamian civilization, dreams featuring celestial disturbances, stars plummeting from heaven, the sun darkening at midday, rivers running crimson, were interpreted as harbingers of impending warfare or catastrophic events. Temple priests meticulously documented these visionary experiences, searching for recurring patterns that might reveal an empire's destiny. These dream archives weren't merely historical curiosities, but active consultation resources during moments of national crisis. Similarly, Egyptian culture recognized dreams as divine messengers. The legendary account of Pharaoh Thutmose IV exemplifies this tradition. He claimed a prophetic dream in which the Sphinx itself addressed him, promising the throne of Egypt if he liberated the monument from encroaching desert sands. Whether historical truth or brilliant political narrative, this dream claim powerfully legitimized his royal authority in the eyes of his subjects. Throughout ancient Greece, prophetic dreams profoundly influenced military campaigns and political strategies before crucial decisions. Leaders either practiced dream incubation or consulted oracular figures like the Pythia at Delphi, whose prophetic abilities often manifested through dream states. Even Alexander the Great reportedly experienced a dream visitation from the Egyptian deity Serapis before launching his Persian conquest division, he interpreted as divine endorsement of his military ambitions. Yet, prophetic dreams weren't exclusively reserved for royalty and warriors. Ordinary citizens believed their dreams could foretell marriages, births, illnesses, or deaths. Artemidorus' comprehensive Onera Critica cataloged thousands of such interpretations. Dreaming of dental loss signified family bereavement. Dreams of flight indicated imminent fortune reversals. This widespread belief in dream prophecy democratized divine communication, giving even the humblest individuals glimpses into fate's mysterious tapestry. Yet this connection to the divine also bred anxiety. What if crucial warnings went unheeded? What if symbolic messages were misunderstood? In a world where deities communicated through dreams, the act of sleeping transformed from mere biological necessity into sacred dialogue with destiny itself. Ancient healing traditions extended far beyond herbal remedies and surgical interventions. Dreams themselves served as powerful medicine. Sacred healing sanctuaries, known as dream temples, flourished across numerous ancient cultures. Within these hallowed spaces, the ailing sought not merely physical treatments, but divine intervention, with therapeutic journeys beginning not through medicines, but through sacred sleep itself. The Asclepians of ancient Greece stand as the most renowned examples, dedicated to Asclepius, the divine physician, However, this practice wasn't uniquely Hellenic. Earlier civilizations in Egypt and Mesopotamia similarly recognized dreams as channels for healing wisdom and spiritual cleansing. These temples weren't refuges from illness, but sacred gateways to encounter healing's divine source through the medium of dreams. The ritual processed incubation followed specific protocols. Pilgrims purified themselves through fasting, ritual bathing, or sacrificial offerings before reclining within a consecrated chamber, typically after nightfall. The intention was beautifully straightforward, yet profoundly spiritual, to dream with focused purpose, opening oneself completely to divine presence. During these sacred slumbers, deities or spirits would manifest, offering diagnostic insights, therapeutic instructions, or even performing ethereal surgeries within the dreamscape itself. Some experienced symbolic visions of serpents' sacred emblems, of Asclepius coiling around afflicted body parts. Others described sensations of being bathed in celestial radiance or touched by divine hands, awakening with the unmistakable certainty of transformative healing. Upon awakening, temple priests masters in the arcane art of dream interpretation would carefully gather the dreamer's nocturnal visions. These spiritual physicians listened with practiced ears, translating the symbolic language of dreams into precise healing regimens. Some prescriptions seemed deceptively simple: sipping a sacred infusion under the waning moon, circumambulating a shrine 7 times at dawn, or presenting specific offerings to appease divine forces, in particularly powerful cases. The dream vision itself constituted the entire treatment, the divine touch leaving an indelible mark on body and spirit alike. Far from obscure cult sites, these dream temples became renowned healing centers, drawing thousands of pilgrims from distant lands. The temple walls themselves bore witness to countless miracle stone inscriptions detailing restored sight, vanquished fevers, and bodies freed from excruciating pain. Whether the transformations occurred through physiological mechanisms, psychological suggestion, or genuine divine intervention remained irrelevant. The profound power of sacred dreams to heal was undeniable. This therapeutic dream work transcended geographical boundaries. Egyptians journeyed to the hallowed chambers of Serapis, or sought the wisdom of deified Imhotep, hoping to receive nocturnal revelations with curative power. Mesopotamian sufferers found solace in temples dedicated to Gula, goddess of healing, where specialized sacred spaces facilitated both dream divination and ritual incubation. A profound philosophical foundation united these diverse practices across civilizations. The conviction that body and soul existed not as separate entities, but as integrated aspects of wholeness, with the soul revealing its deepest wisdom through the medium of dreams. Healing extended beyond mere physical remedy, sought to restore divine harmony within the human vessel. Within these sacred dream sanctuaries, where silence itself became a form of reverence, dreams transcended mere narratives to become potent medicine for both flesh and spirit. The ancient dreamscape served not only as a realm of prophecy and healing, but also as a liminal threshold where the dead could commune with the living. Across ancient civilizations, dreams were revered as sacred moments when the veil between worlds grew gossamer thin. To encounter a departed loved one during slumber wasn't dismissed as mere psychological processing of grief. It represented an authentic visitation from beyond the deceased spirit, returning with urgent messages, warnings of impending danger, or requests for ritual completion. These nocturnal reunions carried profound emotional and spiritual significance, often changing the course of waking decisions. In Egypt, where elaborate afterlife beliefs permeated every aspect of culture, dreams offered privileged access to the underworld's mysteries. The Kai central soul energy was believed to journey freely during sleep, traversing the boundaries between realms and even communing with the dead. A visitation from a deceased relative carried multiple possible meanings. Perhaps they required additional offerings, felt dissatisfied with burial arrangements, or simply wished to impart crucial guidance to the living. Egyptians sometimes composed poignant letters addressed to departed loved ones, carefully placing these written supplications within tombs or sacred shrines, hoping their requests would be acknowledged through dream visitations. Mesopotamian cultures approached dream encounters with the dead through a lens of both reverence and caution. The deceased retained significant spiritual influence from beyond the grave, and their appearance in dreams often signaled unresolved matters requiring attention, perhaps neglected funerary rites, unfulfilled promises, or incomplete vows. Such visitations typically prompted immediate ritual responses, purification ceremonies, supplementary offerings, or specific prayers to restore proper spiritual balance. The Greeks similarly accorded profound importance to dreams of the dead. Homer's Odyssey dramatically portrays Odysseus's descent into the underworld to commune with departed spirits, a journey mirroring what many Greeks believed possible during dream states. The philosopher Heraclitus captured this perspective eloquently, observing that the waking share one common world, but the sleeping turn aside each into a private world. This private dreamscape represented the sacred territory where the dead could breach the boundaries of mortality, momentarily rejoining the world of the living. This belief extended far beyond Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cultures, continents, and civilizations. Similar convictions flourished regarding the dead's continued presence and their ability to communicate through dreams. When a beloved parent's voice or a child's laughter echoed through nocturnal visions, ancient peoples recognized not poetic imagination, but authentic spiritual connection. To these ancient dreamers, sleep served not as an escape from reality, but as a sacred doorway through which the past could reach forward through time, requesting remembrance, offering wisdom, or simply maintaining bonds that transcended death itself. For ancient civilizations, dreams represented far more than simple messages. They constituted intricate spiritual puzzles, adorned with mysterious symbols, fantastical creatures, impossible scenarios, and celestial omens. Dreams were understood as divine communications encoded in a sacred symbolic language that required specialized deciphering. Interpretation demanded not casual analysis, but profound training, spiritual intuition, and often elaborate ritual preparation. Across Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece, professional dream interpreters functioned as spiritual mediators, occupying positions comparable to high priests or shamans. These specialists meticulously studied extensive dream archives, committed vast symbolic dictionaries to memory, and developed refined techniques for distinguishing between truly prophetic visions and inconsequential mental wanderings. Their interpretations carried such authority that they could influence royal decrees, military campaigns, medical treatments, and religious practices. Certain dream symbols recurred across diverse cultural traditions, yet their meanings were rarely literal or universal. A serpent might portend imminent danger in one context, but herald transformative renewal in another. Visions of fire could warn of impending destruction or promise spiritual purification. Dreams of flight potentially symbolized the soul's liberation from earthly constraints or revealed subconscious desires to escape oppressive circumstances. Egyptian dream manuals cataloged hundreds of such symbolic correlations with remarkable specificity. Experiencing drowning in dreams might foretell approaching emotional turbulence. Perceiving oneself as blind could presage spiritual illumination or indicate willful ignorance toward plainly visible truths. These interpretations weren't arbitrary speculation, but components of a sophisticated symbolic language, refined across countless generations of spiritual practice. In the sun-drenched agoras of ancient Greece, Artemidorus of Daldis crafted his masterwork, the One Critica, 5-volume compendium that revolutionized dream analysis. With meticulous detail, he shattered the notion of universal dream interpretation, insisting instead on the critical importance of context. A farmer witnessing floodwaters in slumber faced an omen vastly different from a sailor encountering the same vision. This nuanced approach makes the One Critica remarkably prescient. Its recognition that personal circumstance colors dream meaning anticipated modern psychological thought by nearly 18 centuries. Dream interpretation existed not in isolation, but as one brilliant thread in an intricate tapestry of divination practices. Dreams were celestial whispers in a cosmic conversation conducted through omens, portents, and divine messages. The serious dreamer might seek clarification through oracular consultation, ritual casting of lots, or performing elaborate offerings to illuminate the dream's deeper significance. Some kept meticulous dream journals, not on disposable paper, but inscribed with reverence on precious papyrus, or enduring clay-creating records, meant not merely for personal reflection, but as communal wisdom to be shared and preserved. For these ancient seekers, dream symbols weren't abstract psychological constructs, but sacred keys that unlocked divine intentions. To master this enigmatic language was to glimpse the very architecture of fate, to peer into the soul's hidden chambers, and to receive cosmic dispatches encoded in the night's dark embrace. Modern society often relegates dreams to the periphery, ephemeral fragments quickly dissolving with the morning light. Curious anecdotes shared over breakfast, or, at most, raw material for therapy sessions and artistic inspiration. Yet, in the ancient world, dreams commanded profound reverence. They were sacred transmissions, structured communications, and respected messengers from beyond. These nocturnal visions offered divine guidance, facilitated healing, bridged the chasm between the living and the dead, and provided fleeting glimpses of celestial realms. Dreams weren't separate from reality, but woven intimately into its fabric, influencing medicine, spirituality, governance, and the rhythms of daily existence. The transformation came gradually, but relentlessly. As the Enlightenment cast its rational light across Western thought, dreams underwent a profound reclassification. No longer divine missives, worthy of temple interpretations. They were demoted to mere neurological phenomena, electrical impulses cascading through neural pathways, fragments of memory reshuffled like cards, or emotional residue being processed by the sleeping mind. The sacred became clinical, the symbolic reduced to chemical reactions. Yet despite this seismic shift in understanding, dreams retain their mysterious power. In moments of profound grief, life-faltering transitions, or when intuition speaks in urgent whispers, we still turn to our dreams for meaning. The vision of a departed loved one can bring cathartic closure. A persistent nightmare might illuminate stress patterns or reveal uncomfortable truths we've been avoiding in waking hours. The pioneers of modern psychology, Freud, with his theory of repressed desires, and Jung, with his collective unconscious, to reclaim some fragment of ancient wisdom. Acknowledging dreams' profound psychological significance, even while abandoning explicit divine origins. What the ancients intuitively understood was that the dreamscape isn't separate from life, but serves as its mystical mirror, reflecting not only our individual fears and longings, but connecting us to something vaster and eternal. Whether interpreted as divine communication, prophetic warning, or communion with ancestors, dreams offered something increasingly scarce in our waking hours: authentic conversation with the great unknown. Perhaps what we've truly lost isn't just a method of interpretation, but a fundamental humility, the willingness to listen attentively to what the sleeping mind might reveal. Across vast stretches of time and diverse civilizations, one conviction remained unshaken. Dreams are not random neural misfirings, but doorways to deeper understanding. The question isn't whether these nocturnal journeys hold meaning, but whether we possess the courage to step through these portals of possibility. From every ancient temple where dream incubation was practiced, from every clay tablet and papyrus scroll where visions were recorded, echoes the same timeless invitation: pay attention. Close your eyes not to escape reality, but to perceive it more profoundly. For in the hushed sanctuary of night, when the clamor of the world subsides, we might recapture what the Sumerians, Egyptians, and Greeks understood with certainty. Dreams are not merely echoes of the individual mind, but the universal language of the soul itself. And so, dear listener, as our journey through the harsh reality of medieval blacksmithing comes to an end, I hope the rhythmic striking of hammer on anvil has lulled you toward peaceful slumber, while the blacksmith's rest was ever elusive. Filled with aching muscles and dreams of endless labor, may yours be gentle and undisturbed. Perhaps there's comfort in knowing that whatever challenges tomorrow brings, they likely won't involve molten metal, toxic smoke, or negotiating payment in questionable poultry. As you drift away, imagine the forge fires finally dimming, the bellows falling silent, and even our tireless craftsman finding, at last, his well-learned repose. Sleep well, rest deeply, and should you dream of medieval times, may you be the well-compensated noble rather than the soot-covered smith. Until our next historical journey, good night.